Hello everybody and welcome back to the final part of Let's Read Owen the Barbarian. So for you of you who are left, well done. I know there aren't many of you to sit through the three stories so far. This is the last story. This was a quadrilogy, not the trilogies. I think I put it in the title of the book. But in fact, let's go and check that because I did forget that. Yeah, the Revenge Trilogy, and there's actually 4 books. Okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. So, now obviously I'm going to read this. At the end of it, I'm going to give my thoughts on on obviously the book that I'm about to read, and the thing as a whole, and how it's affected everything that came after, because I think that's quite relevant as well. So we join Owen as he has met Chandril, an elf, I can't remember what she was called. Some sort of warrior. And we've recently saved the dwarf fortress of Caragvir from Skaven attack. And currently our characters are trying to kill Deathmaster Snitch. That's the entire thing of the whole story. They want to kill Deathmaster Snitch. Chandril wants to kill Deathmaster Snitch because he killed her sister, and Owen, his brother. Very convenient. And so their plan is to basically go south and become famous so Snitch can find them. There we go, you see. Because, yeah, how do we find him? We don't have to. What do you mean? Think about it. We just stopped him from taking hold of Caragvir. He hates us as much as we hate him. So all we have to do is kill an ice dragon or two, and Snitch is bound to find out where we are. He'll come in the night, probably kill us as we sleep, and then, we don't have any better ideas, so we might as well become famous so he knows where we are so he can come and get us. That's the plan that our characters have. So let's get in there with Owen's Revenge, Part 4, Owen's Revenge, Chapter 1. Luck may save your life, but your weapon is more likely to. That is not the best start. That's not a great quote, I gotta say. If that's the sign of things to come, then, yeah. Alright, here we go. The winter months were closing in fast as Owen and Chandril ventured into the high mountains of the south. They were well advised to take bear furs with them, though Owen did not feel the icy winds half as much as Chandril did, as she had spent the better part of her life in the warmer lands of the elves. "It's so bitterly cold," Chandril blurted out as they neared the mountains. "Remind me why we are going south, because my brain is frozen." "Ah, yes, because exposition is extremely well done in dialogue." Not. Owen decided that this was as good a time as any to tell her. "We're going to enter the races of Hulst." "The what?" Chandril asked through clicking teeth. "The races of Hulst. Every winter at a small town in the south, a great chariot race is held. The winners are rewarded with a few 100,000 coins and fame throughout the land for a few weeks at least." "And that's how Snitch will find us?" asked Chandril. "Yes. Can't we just go and find him?" "Well, I've already, been through this, but alright, no, we're going through why we're doing this, okay? It's impossible. I tried for many months. I only came across him by pure chance at Caragvir. Anything's better than this." "You'll get used to it," said Owen softly. "I doubt it, but it can't get any worse." At that moment, the first winter snow began to fall. Chandril swore bitterly, and Owen chuckled to himself. She has no idea what she's getting herself into, he thought. What a guy. As the wings picked up, it became almost impossible to hear each other, so they eventually stopped talking, I guess, and had to tie their horses together so they wouldn't lose each other in the heavy snow and blizzards that would undoubtedly come. Somehow they found an inn, that was handy, and were thankful when they had their horses stabled and they entered the warm oasis. Okay, warm oasis, that's nice imagery, I like that. Chandril went straight to the large log fire and began furiously defrosting her hands and silver hair, while Owen made his way to the bar, ordering food and drink for the both of them. Before sitting down next to Chandril, he examined the inn. There were 2 doors, one outside and one to the kitchens, and a flight of stairs which Owen reasoned led up to the guest rooms. A few tables were scattered about. At some sat groups of adventurers or merchants who kept themselves to themselves and supped their ale. Chandril sat as near to the fire as she could without setting fire to a close. Owen sat next to her, allowing the fire to slowly warm him. "Tell me about the races," said Chandril, staring into the flames of the fire. "I have gone but once, and that was many years ago, but I do not think it would have changed too much." How do you know? Take a drink here. How do you make assumption? "Everyone who wishes to enter is supplied with a chariot, but must provide their own horses." It's handy then, isn't it, that they don't have a chariot, but they do have 2 horses. All the competitors start in rows, the ones with the best quality horses at the back to give the others a chance. The track runs along a mountain trail which is littered with pits, sheer drops and the like, and is about a mile or 2 long, the winner being the first chariot to complete the circuit. "Do many die?" "Yes, horses as well as the riders," said Owen. "I'm willing to take on the challenge with Midnight, but are you prepared to risk Surefoot's life as well as your own?" Chandril thought for a moment, then said, "I have not ridden Surefoot." What if she says no at this point? I mean, he's, kind of screwed. He's dragged her all the way to the south. He's like, "No, actually, we're not going to do this, Owen." And he's like, "Oh, well, it's a good thing that she's going along with everything he says. I'm just saying, it's kind of convenient. But I think that she and I trust each other. Hence, she won't suspect you sacrificing her. I want revenge more than anything." The answer to your question is yes. So, this bit makes no sense. I think that she and I trust each other. That makes no difference at all. So, I'm willing to sacrifice Surefoot, basically. "Good," said Owen, and put his massive hand on her cloaked shoulder. "I shall book our rooms." "Owen," said Chandril, I know something. It's going to be a cold night." Owen took a meaning. "I shall book our room," he corrected. Yeah, that wasn't so bad, but you are a couple now, Owen. I mean, just book your room. I mean, just this was, I have to, get it across that he's going to get laid again. I just have to, say, it's going to be a cold night. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I have to put that in there. "Men are but playthings of the gods." I like that. That's pretty good. It's not very original, but at least it makes sense. The morning sun shone through the window and made Owen slowly awake. He felt Chandril's warm body next to his, her arm across his chest. He slowly slipped out of bed so he would not wake her and dressed himself. "Oh, that's nice. You can make a breakfast." Where am I? He looked out the window. The snow had stopped, but there was a deep layer of it covering the ground. Owen watched the innkeeper and his servants try to clear the snow, their breaths steaming in the cold air. This is good imagery. I'm feeling strangely descriptive at this point. The sun was obviously not giving off a great deal of heat. He looked up at the snow-capped mountains a day's ride away. Then he realized he was home. When Chandril awoke, they went down for breakfast, and they were served by a small boy behind the bar. As the boy handed them their porridge over, he said, "Please, sir, but that man over there told me he wanted to see you." The boy pointed to a figure sat at the centre of the inn. He wore furs, carried a longer sword, and also a suit of chainmail armour on. Okay, the human had a full... Okay, so there's 2 paragraphs of text explaining this guy. Had a full head of black hair, close-shaven beard, and moustache, and deep brown eyes, which stared at the mug of ale at the table before him. They saw him from all the way over there. "Thank you, boy," said Owen, flicking in one of his few remaining gold coins. Owen and Chandril strolled across the room to the man. So you saw he had dark brown eyes from across the room. Eyes of the hawk, and he doesn't miss a thing. "You wish to talk to me?" Owen asked. The man looked up. He had a scar on his right cheek, which told Owen that he must have been a mercenary at some point. Yeah, because that's the only way you can get a scar. The whole image of him with a sword and chainmail armor as well lends it to him being a warrior, but it's the scar that clinches it. "Yes, please sit," said the man, gesturing to the chairs. "My name is Morval. I'm a merchant heading for Hulst." A merchant, okay. I need a few people to protect me and my merchandise from the wild hillmen that roam the mountains." "We too are heading for Hulst," said Owen, now sat with Chandril. "But you don't look like a merchant." "It is true, I was a mercenary, such as yourselves, but I am too old for that now. I merely wear all this stuff to make someone who means to rob me think twice." "And what of pay?" asked Chandril. "Surely you don't expect us to help you for free?" "I will pay 100 gold, 50 now and 50 when we get to Hulst." But how do I know that you will overcome the hillmen? We will, said Owen, flexing his biceps. What's your name? Oh, God. What's your name? I am Owen the Barbarian. This is Chandril, a shader. I said shader. Morval extended his hand. A shader? We'll be in good hands then. Do we have a deal, Owen? Owen looked at Chandril, who nodded. Owen shook the hand. We have a deal. A few minutes later, Owen and Chandril set off with Morval and his horse-drawn cart towards the mountains and Hulst. Okay. Weaponsmiths are those who forge the killing tools of warriors and are the biggest murderers of all. Oh, that's good. Weaponsmiths are those who forge the killing tools of warriors and are the biggest murderers of all. It should really be killers, but that's good. That is good. Wow, I'm getting inspired as I'm writing this. The snow did not fall that day, but there were still the icy winds, and Chandril was as bad as ever. She got so cold that Morval finally said she could go inside the cart with the silks. With a roof over her head, she was twice as warm, but was still not as warm as she would have liked. Surefoot was colder, trotting along tied to the wagon. Well, sacrificial lamb and all that, doesn't matter. Owen and Morval talked while the wind was low about how Owen lost his hand, where Morval's scar came from, and other stories from their adventures. Not once did Owen mention... Okay, so we don't want to know where Morval... It doesn't matter where his scar came from. It doesn't matter. He just came from somewhere. Snitch. He did not want to put another person to tell him what a fool he was, but Owen was pleased to meet another person so like himself. As the sun went down in the early afternoon, they decided it was not safe to travel by dark, so they camped a few miles from the mountains. I thought the mountains were a day away. Although I suppose a few miles from the mountains isn't that long. Yeah, early afternoon. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. It's going to be cold, said Morval. Makes a change, murmured Chandril. Two of us should sleep in the cart at a time, but we will take turns, the other sleeping under it. So, who shall go first? You didn't bring, like, tents and stuff? I mean, you brought furs, but no, like, camping equipment at all? Okay. Owen's luck was all it needed. Morval began clearing the snow under the cart. Oh, so they're going to make him sleep under his own cart so they can get laid in his cart. That's brilliant. Chandril stirring woke Owen. Oh, okay, so that's done. Alright. He slowly opened his eyes. He saw Chandril open the flaps to let the sun in, and Chandril saw him awake. Good morning, he said. She said, sleep well. Like a log, he answered. I was so tired I morning, he shouted. By all the gods, Morval's been under the cart all night. He'll be frozen. Owen scrambled out of the cart, shouting to Morval. He looked under the cart and saw Morval lying there. Owen dragged him out. Wake up, shouted Owen. What? Said Morval, blinded by the sun. Owen, what are you doing? Are you all right? asked Chandril, climbing out of the cart. Of course I'm all right, laughed Morval. You think I had frozen? You should spend a night on Hookback Mountain, my barbarian friend. Then you'll know what cold is. Morval stood up and went to make breakfast. I have, whispered Owen to himself. Oh, that was one story I didn't want to tell. Of course he has. You know, you can't get anything over this guy. You know, I mean, this Morval, you know, he spent a night on Hookback Mountain and lived, and you know, so was Owen. Yeah, he probably did it when he was 3 years old. Owen and Chandril had planned to travel on the high ground they could find, so that they wouldn't be ambushed. Unfortunately, with Morval's cart now with them, they had to take the easiest way through the mountains as possible. And this meant on the lowest ground with the easiest a road, basically, is what you're saying, isn't it? You have to take the road. The snow had become hard by the time they were traveling through the high peaks, and this reduced the risk of an avalanche. Does it? Well, I guess so, yeah. The wind blew across the peaks and made a frightening whooshing noise which Owen found he had missed. He began to think of his days when he was younger, and the wars with other tribes, the words of his father, which we continuously hear about, the death of his mother. His mother's dead, okay. So is his father dead? I mean, you know, death of his mother, laying to fight with his brother, spending lonely nights in the mountains, Hookback Mountain, of his own free will. As you would. Then an ear-piercing cry, surprise, surprise, brought his thoughts, and he looked up to see a group of wild hillmen on the slope to the left, hiding behind a group of boulders. They were armed with bows. As the arrows struck the wagon, Owen drew his axe from his back, and Chandril leapt from the wagon to a horse. She cut the rope which held it to the wagon with a sword, and began the charge. "Save me! Save the cloth!" bellowed Marval. "Get them! Get them!" Oh, so this guy's a coward. I thought he was like Owen. I thought these guys were like, Marval was this grizzled old veteran who had, become a mercenary and obviously had hired them for protection, but, you still got armor on and stuff and sleeps under carts, but no, apparently, well, save me, get the, okay, well, anyway, we'll carry on. Owen knew the best way to get past an ambush was to go through it, of course it was, and he made Midnight gallop up the slope. The hillmen were surprised at this, and their arrows were not as accurate as they should have been. One arrow thudded into Owen's shoulder, but the thick thirds prevented it from reaching his skin. Oh, phew, I was going to get hurt then. Owen reached the enemy, and atop Midnight he began butchering the hillmen. They were not skilled warriors and only had clubs to which to defend themselves. Chandril engaged the ambushes just after Owen had felled a fifth. Yeah, because she couldn't get there before Owen. Oh, hell no. And they proved no more of a challenge for her as they did for Owen. A few seconds later, the remainder of the hillmen were frantically trying to get away. Owen and Chandril let them. Searching the bodies, they found they had no gold. Their bows were of poor quality, and they had nothing else of value. Marval congratulated them and said he would have helped when he had to climb the horses. Unharmed, the three of them continued their journey towards Hulst and the chariot. I'm not sure whether Marval's supposed to come off as a coward or not. I don't really know where I'm going with this guy, honestly. Bit of a mixed message with him. It could be on purpose, but I highly doubt it. Chapter 4. Many adventurers feel blind fear, but few have the sensation of sheer terror. Yeah. The three of them could see Hulst now. It was built on a rare part of flat land. It was, as Chandril had expected, a walled town to keep the court and hillmen out. Every fire in every house was burning, and the smoke from chimneys swirled up to the sky. To the far side of the town, Chandril could see a track which was dead straight. What's that? She asked Owen. That's the road which leads up to the racecourse. Oh, it's a racecourse. Again, I wasn't feeling too. I was getting. I think at this stage I know. Okay, so there's like a walled town. Blah 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 blah. I get to the action. What's that? Okay, so we're going. Okay. Chandril saw that many wagons were entering the town through the main gate, and soon they would be involved in a major hold-up. She groaned. "When we were in Carrickvere, you said you knew someone who could fix us up for a few nights," she said to Owen. "Who is it?" "An old friend of mine," said Owen. "His name is Delbridge. He was a friend of my father." So his father is dead. "When I was in my early teens and all the tribes were at war with each other, he was best friends with my father." You just said he was friends with your father. They joined the rest of the wagons in the square. "Where does Delbridge live?" "He lives in the bloody town. He owns one of the biggest houses in the town. He's quite a wealthy man." She's asking all these questions just so Owen can provide exposition for the story, so you don't have to say it later on. Chandril began to think about money. In her way of life, she had little use for it. While away from her home, she barely had enough to survive. If they were to win the chariot race, then all their dreams of gold and silver as a child would come true. Oh, so even though she had little use of it, she still really desired it. They entered the city. At first, they thought they would be sent straight out again because of their weapons, but Marval saved them by telling the guards they had an agreement. The guard let them pass after searching the cart. What difference does having weapons make? I mean, it's never been an issue before. So, "Speaking of our agreement," said Owen to Marval, "we've got you here along with your cloth, so can we be having the rest of our gold now?" "Very well," said Marval reluctantly. "You did a good job, Owen, and you, Chandril." He gave Owen a pouch of coins. "It's all there. Count it if you want." "All right," said Owen, and he began to transfer the money one piece at a time into his purse. "Where's the rest?" he asked after putting all the money away. Marvel sighed. I was hoping you wouldn't do that," he said, and gave Owen the rest. So, yeah, he's a skinflint. Fine. Owen was right when he said that Delbridge owned one of the biggest houses in the town. It was almost 3 times bigger than any of the other houses. So it's the biggest then, isn't it? Owen knocked on the door, and for a long time all was still. "Perhaps he's not in," said Chandril, tying her horse to the fence "Oh, he's in," said Owen. "Delbridge!" she shouted. "It's Owen! Open the door before I have to knock it down!" What if he isn't in? The door slowly opened, revealing an aging, white-haired man. Delbridge was shorter than Owen, shorter than Chandril, but Chandril could easily tell that... the same height. I remember this. They're the same height. So, but Chandril could easily tell the man's life had not been easy. With his weathered face and scarred hands, he was a hardened veteran of the cold south. "If you truly are Owen, then what was your father's name?" "Gorax." The barbarian. Gorax. Well, we find book 4, and the father has a name. Finally, "Owen," cried Delbridge, "come in. You're most welcome. You and your friend." Fine. Oh look, a girl. Is Morval gone, Lane? Is Morval? I don't know. Well, we'll see. Oh. "Any man with an army at his back may call himself king, but it takes more than an army to win the heart of the people." It's okay. That was alright. After writing their names on the list for the race, Owen and Chandril went to choose a chariot. The race was in a week's time, so they were fairly early. So also the traffic then, if they're really early. And had a choice of the chariots on offer. After much discussion, Owen and Chandril couldn't choose between two of them. The first was a brilliant black. The haft was a dragon's head and neck, its tongue wrapped around the yoke. I like my dragon's heads, don't I? Because the Temple of Coranda was a big dragon's head as well. So I just had to think of a dragon's head at this point. Which were 2 harpies in full flight. On the wheels, I mean, again, I go into massive detail about these things. On the wheels were 2 metal claws used to rip other chariots apart. The second was much lighter than the first, made by elven hands. The wood was painted in white and blue. The haft and yoke were both of plain wood. But like the rest of the chariots, was strong and light. The wheels had no claws. So, hang on a minute. As we were fairly early, they had a choice of the most of chariots on offer. Okay, so so it's a first come, first serve. So they get all these chariots ready. And they're obviously all quite different. And people sort of arrive and say, I want that one. I want that one. That's kind of unfair. Or, why have them different? Why just make them all the same? And then it wouldn't make a difference, would it? Owen desperately wanted the black chariot. He thought it would be the closest thing he would get to flying a dragon. Oh, he hasn't flown a dragon? Blimey, something this guy hasn't done. He also wanted to see the other competitors go flying after their wheel was cut to ribbons, but Chandril opted for the other boring one, as he described it. "It's too light," said Owen. "It will take off." "You've forgotten one thing," said Chandril. "What?" "You." Owen looked at her, puzzled. "How much do you weigh?" "About 250 pounds. Bloody hell. And you expect midnight and 250 pounds? And you expect sure sight and sure foot and mid sight to drag you and that massive thing around? With me on, they won't get halfway." Okay, so it's too heavy. "I suppose you've got a point," shrugged Owen, "but I still think we'll go flying." So Owen and Chandril chose the lighter elven chariot to save the horses from the sheer weight of the black chariot. After the taken sign was placed on their chosen chariot, the two of them went back to Delbridge's house for a bite to eat and then bed. Delbridge was not much of a cook, and tea was made up of stale bread, burnt potatoes, almost raw lamb, and a raspberry pie, though Owen and Chandril thought it tasted more like sheep dung. Not wishing to offend Delbridge, as he was giving them a free room, the Barbarian and the Shader said it was very nice and ate as much as they could. "Do you want some more?" smiled Delbridge. "No, thank you," said Chandril. We already ate, you see." "Oh, all right," said Delbridge. "But don't eat out tomorrow, because I'll satisfy that hunger of yours. Tomorrow breakfast will be eggs, black pudding, bacon." Delbridge suddenly stopped because Owen promptly ran upstairs holding his mouth. "What's wrong with him?" What is the point of all this? Why are we reading this? Why did I write it? What is this adding? What? Pure filler. Absolute filler. "What's wrong with him?" asked Delbridge, shocked. Well, yes, you see, we were in Carrickvere and we got to the sewers and Owen, he fell in. He's not been the same since." Sandra tried to breathe a sigh of relief when Delbridge seemed to believe her. "Hadn't you better see if he's all right?" he said. "Yes, Chandril," I said I'd better. Chandril made upstairs and went into their room. She found Owen retching out of the window, much to the stress of someone who had been walking by at the time. Oh, guffaw, guffaw, guffaw. So yeah, Delabridge can't cook. We got a good page on that, didn't we? Okay, the road to victory is always filled with sorrow. Oh, that's good one. That's a good one. The road to victory is always filled with sorrow. I like that, very poignant. Yes. It was a fitful sleep, but not for the usual reason. For Delabridge, cooking did not agree with them. About 1 in the morning, they gave up trying to get to sleep. Oh, God, what? And instead, they discussed ways of avoiding food that was prepared for them. They couldn't afford to have sleepless nights when the chariot was soon to take place. What little sleep they got was disturbed by the most horrific smell either of them had ever known. It was worse than dragon dung, worse than a troll's armpit, worse than a minotaur's breath. Delbridge was cooking breakfast. I get it, okay? It doesn't matter. What am I writing this for? After breakfast, the two of them were glad to get out the house. Owen found a water cellar, bought all the water, and washed away what was left of the previous night's meal. One of their ideas was to find a hungry stray... I don't care! A hungry stray dog or cat and slip pieces of food under the table to it. What... Fortunately, Hulst was one of the rare towns that had a dog pound. Oh, that's bloody handy, isn't it? And while Chandril went to choose one, Owen brought some real food. The shader came back with a small, scraggy little terrier, which was always yapping around their feet, and Owen fell over it more than once. What is the point? Am I, like, referring to something that I don't remember? You know, like, maybe something in life at that point. Maybe I knew a little dog like that, and I was put it in for a laugh. When they returned, Delbridge said he had no problem with the dog as long as they cleaned up after it and kept it fed. They weren't too keen on the first of these instructions. Well, you got to be prepared for these sort of things, guys, you know. But were more than willing with the second. Next few days went by very slowly. Their time was spent feeding their dog, who they named Ripper because of what it did to its food, and riding their horses. It was obvious that they would have been at a disadvantage if their horses had been stood in the stables for a week while the others had trained earlier. Can we get to something relevant? Because this is nothing. All of this, all this here, all of this, up to there, is pointless. Now, hang on a minute. The night before the race, the city suddenly became very busy and crowded. Those who could not find an inn to stop at slept in the streets. In the morning, it was even worse, and Owen had to fight his way through the crowds, while Chandril stayed close behind him. The two of them fought their way to the chariot house and gained entrance. Their horses were being strapped up to their chariot, ready for the race that would begin in less than an hour. Finally, we've bloody got there. Chandril looked about the large room and saw a score of chariots. Their riders were mounting. The horses were being strapped to the hafts. Okay, so everyone's getting ready and strapped in and stuff. Yeah, great, okay. She saw the riders were mostly human with a few elves. Dwarves numbered none, as they were so short they couldn't see over the rim of the chariots. The same could be said of hobbits and halflings. Out of curiosity, she looked to see who had taken the chariot with spiked wheels, and her face turned pale. Dark hunters, she whispered to herself. Boarding the black structure were two of the worst enemies of the shader. One male and one female, they were obviously a couple. She hoped, prayed that they would not meet on the track. As if sensing this, the female saw her. The dark hunter stared at Chandril for a moment, her gaze penetrating Chandril's soul, pointed with a finger and drew it across her neck. Chandril wished she had a sword, but weapons were forbidden on the track. Maybe that's why I don't have to bring him into the town itself, but that doesn't make any sense, really, because you can just stop them from bringing them to the track. Then a horn blew. A huge door at the far end of the room opened, and the chariots began to filter out onto the track. The sounds of whips penetrated Chandril's vision of seeing those two flying off a cliff to their well-deserved death. So obviously we've got a bit of rivalry here between the big dragon-shaped black chariot and our two heroes. Chapter 7. Force is not always the best way. The chariots were in 5 ranks of 4, and Owen and Chandril were placed slap bang in the centre. The crowds were gathered around the outskirts of the track, which was wet and muddy. It had snowed heavily that night. I wonder why they have this event in winter. Out of curiosity. It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? More than one was frozen stiff. And much of the rest of those who had slept on the streets, more than one was found frozen stiff. Okay, so they died during the night. Nobody minded. Everybody was too excited to care. What, even like the people who knew these, people who had died during the night? No one really was bothered at all. Chandra looked for the dark hunters, noticed their presence behind her as she nodded to us, and she nodded to herself. Alright, so they've got better horses. Are you sure you want to do this? Asked her. What's the point of asking now, you twits? I mean, you've been there for a week. What is... Yeah, there you go. It's a bit late now. He had seen her face, and he thought she was beginning to have second thoughts about the race. No, she said. And even if I did, it's a bit late now. Owen shrugged. He believed her. Riders, get ready, shouted a voice. It was the race starter, obviously, stood on a high platform. 3, Chandril gripped the reins. 2, the crowd went silent. 1, all of Owen's body tensed. Go! Suddenly, like a wave crashing into the shore, the chariots began to move. Straight away, 3 chariots at the back collided, sending ropes, people, and parts of chariots flying. The mast veered off the track into the hastily constructed platform that the starter was on. The wooden structure gave a groan, swayed, and then came crashing to the ground, crushing another chariot and some of the spectators, at the same time flinging the starter into the air like a rag doll. That's good! I do slag myself off a lot in these stories, pointing out all the bad stuff and that. But this paragraph is good. I'm obviously there. I'm in the moment. As soon, I'm obviously. It's pretty obvious from my writing. Not just in this, but everything, where I'm just like writing to get through it, and when I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. And obviously, this is the latter. And the last chapter about the whole bloody dog thing was the former. I don't know why I wrote it in the first place. But anyway, at the front, the same nearly happened, but thanks to the expertise of one of the other riders, there was not a massive pile-up, and the race finally got underway. The first part of the track was very straight, and those with speed gained the upper hand. Owen and Chandra were one of those, and they passed 2 chariots before having to slow down behind a third. Even this early, the 2 of them were covered in mud. Chandril took a chance to look over her shoulders. She saw no sign of the dark hunters. Then there was a crunch, and she quickly realized that they had rammed the chariot in front. Owen tapped her on her shoulder and smiled. Do me a favor, he laughed. Look that way, he pointed ahead of them. How can you be so calm at a time like this? She wondered in amazement. Oh yes, because he's so bloody... God. Anyway. They came to a sharp bend in the track. They turned heavily and saw that one had not, for a chariot was lying. One had not, for a chariot was lying upside down on one of the few trees that grew this far south. That sentence is awkward. There was a small straight, and then the track turned right. At that point, they were about 3rd or 4th, but they were on the left-hand side and were rammed up against a cliff for about 20 yards by a chariot ridden by 2 youths. A mistake on their part, for Owen took it personally. The barbarian thrust his hook into their chariot's spokes. Within seconds, their wheel did not exist, and they went crashing into the cliff face, horses whining as Owen and Chandra rode on. Yeah, okay, you're not allowed weapons, but Owen's got this hook that can cut through anything, which is a slight advantage. Since they were in a blind spot between the 2 cliffs, there were no officials around to disqualify them when or if they finished. That's... What if you did get caught there, Owen? What if, in that hasty moment, you're getting into the race now, it's forming up, but because you were sort of rammed against a cliff by 2 youths, you risked the entire plan of coming all this way, to get a cheap shot in. He fights dirty, doesn't he? He doesn't think much either. But he's amazing. Don't forget he's amazing. Out of the cliffs, they saw to their amusement that one of the chariots with iron-shod wheels had got stuck. Out of the cliffs? As the barbarian passed, the occupants were bogged down chariots ran for their lives as a chariot with spiked wheels rammed through it like it was made of paper. The horses escaped unharmed. Aha! The chariot ahead of Owen ran over a boulder and was promptly tipped on its back. The chariot went crashing into the cheering crowd. Its riders were trampled by Midnight and Surefoot. Sorry, cried Chandril after them. Midnight and Surefoot's stamina had been magnificent, but now began to tire. Owen could see the chariot ahead. It seemed to be slowing. Go on, Midnight, he shouted to his horse. Good going, Surefoot. The two horses were inspired by Owen's shouts. Who wouldn't be? And found new energy. Just then the Dark Hunters pulled up alongside them. Chandril felt an urge of hatred pass through her body like a knife, and she swerved towards them, only to find that their wheel had nearly been cut off. Chandril, Owen shouted, what are you doing? Then he stopped. He saw the Dark Hunters and remembered the hatred between the two races. He calmed. Oh, what, did your father tell that, So the Dark Hunters are actually a race. We don't really know what they are. That we've been explained at all. But the Dark Hunters are bad, and Chandra doesn't like them. He calmed down. Remember, Snitch, he said. We've got to win. You weren't thinking that before when you almost disqualified yourself, you big oaf. You're right, she said. She turned her attention to the road ahead. They were just a few meters away from the leading chariot now, and Chandra encouraged the horses to go faster. They turned a corner, and all the chariots were alongside each other. All of them? The one in the middle suddenly disappeared. Its wheel cut. Okay, so the three of them. Cut to nothing as another corner was turned. The two Dark Hunters and Than and Chandril with Owen duelled on a straight where, on either side, there was a drop of 30 feet. There were no officials. This was no man land. Oh, okay. How convenient. Brilliant. Okay, so anyway, where are we? No, this was no man's land. The Dark Elves. Oh, the Dark Elves. Are they the Dark Elves? Did I mention that before? Maybe I did, and just was annoyed at other things and forgot. Rammed into the side of Owen's chariot, missing the wheel, but creating a hole in the side near Owen. Before anybody knew anything, Owen had cut the blades off the wheel with his hook, though he nearly wrenched his arm off as well. Chandril saw her chance. She looked up into the female's eyes, pointed at her, and drew her finger across her neck. The Dark Hunter only stood and watched as Chandril's chariot rammed into theirs and made it launch off the side of the track. Chandril's vision was complete. Owen looked back. There were no chariots behind them. The race was won. And there we have the chariot race. The chariot race. It was alright. Obviously, it could have done with a bit more fleshing out, a bit more description and everything, but obviously this is all first draft stuff, and it was alright. Alright, chariot race is done, okay. In every warrior's life, there is a time for killing. In every warrior's life, there is a time for loving. In every warrior's life, there is a time for hating. And in every warrior's life, there is a time to die. And so the word spread. Owen, the one-handed barbarian, and Chandril, the elven shader, had dared to take on the races of Hulst and win. For 5 days and nights, the survivors of the race and the survivors of the crowd joined in a mass celebration. The survivors of the crowd, I like that. This was the reason most people came. The prices of all the food and drink went down by the prices of all the food and drink went down by about. Normally they go up in times of this. I'm just saying. No, capitalism, all that, price hike. It reminded Owen so much of the street parties of Rustor when Arkan the Blatt was declared dead that he couldn't help drifting back despite his newfound fame and riches. He thought of Elowin's body being dropped in the soup bowl, how Erwin and Bobbin had met them early demised. He thought of his friend, Surt the Leprechaun. Right now he would probably be hearing of Owen's victory. He began to think of Cordnell the elf. This is really nice. He was the fastest being he had ever known. He thought of Gattini, of her long flowing hair, her great accuracy with the bow and spear. How he respected her. His thoughts were drawn to Sven. Of all the people he had met, he had never known someone so steadfast, so solid, so resilient as that little dwarf. How he longed to see them all again. That's really nice. I got a little chill there, I did. Just, looking back at Surt and everything like that. How far he's come. It's nice. Nice little touch that. Well done me. Then he stopped. It was all happening so fast. Would this mean that his adventuring days were over? He had all he had wished for, all he had wished of, all he wished of fame, fortune, and love. He had all he wished of fame, fortune, and love. He found he didn't want it. At least not fortune, not yet. He was too young. He was not old enough to hang up his sword and become like one of those fat nobles in a big house. How he hated them. But what would he become? But would he become one? Become what he despised? No! He could not settle down and have children and teach them how to fight and sit back and have servants dress him in fine robes and boots that he could see his face in. He would get his revenge and then he would leave. But why? Because he wanted to. No mention of Chandril in this. All of his life he had lived by his own rules, doing what he wanted to do, and he liked it. Then there was Chandril. How he loved her, cared for her, desired her, but she suddenly felt like a burden. He would have to take her into account now. Oh yes, the trappings of relationships, Owen. He wondered what she would want when all this was over. Oh, that's good of you. Then a thought struck him. Since he was sat right next to her, he would ask her. Chandril, what? When this is all over, what? What will we do? This is going to be interesting. This conversation is going to be. I'm really curious about how I'm going to handle this, because he's got everything he wants, but he's found out that he doesn't want all his fame and fortune and stuff. He wants to keep on traveling and, I suppose reminiscing over his friends and everything. Remind him of the good times. And now that he's here and he's famous and he's rich, and he's sort of like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not ready to hang up my boots just yet. And then he's like, I've got this woman with me now. So let's find out what, how this goes. What will we do? Get revenge on Snitch, she said, eyeing him inquisitively. No, after that. She slumped down in her chair. Oh, and she began, I do love you, but I'm not ready, he guessed. Silently she nodded, a tear rolling down her soft cheek. Owen watched the tear for a moment. He never cried. He never felt the need, because he's an uncaring bastard. He brushed her cheek with a finger. I know, I love you also, but it wouldn't work. Yes, she said, sobbing, I know. Oh, that's handy, isn't it? She feels exactly the same way, so let's just remove any possible drama or conflict that might have arose from that by having her feel exactly the same way. How very pliant she is. Isn't it incredible? How everyone he meets, but especially Chandril, just goes along with everything that Owen wants, because if they didn't, it would be inconvenient to the story, and I'll have to think a little bit of it. But, that was my thinking at the time. I was like, well, I want to write a story about a barbarian going around on adventures, and everyone else, everything just revolves around him. And that's what it is all about, I suppose. Not forgivable, but that's the reasoning. Yes, she said, I know. Will you stay here? No, she said. You? No. What of the money? I will take what I need, he said. So will I. And the rest? Chandril tried to speak, but choked. Within seconds, she was crying on Owen's shoulder. Oh. Oh, in a dark cave a few score miles to the west, there was a cloaked figure. It was throwing daggers at a pike almost 10 feet away. Every dagger it had thrown had hit the slender pike shaft. Master, came a voice from behind. What? The figure said, irritated. We have found the barbarian. The figure span round. And the elf? He asked eagerly. Yes. Master Snitch smiled a cruel smile. Where? A few score miles. How much is a score? Is it like 20? I don't think it's many, is it? It's not like leagues or anything. So he just happens, Snitch just happens to be in a cave pretty close. Chapter 9. If you have many enemies, it is unlikely that they will all be of humankind. That sucks. I thought I was going along the lines, if you have many enemies, then it's good because you've stood up for what you believe in or whatever, but no. The two of them had found themselves in each other's arms that night. Even though they would have have to part ways, they would always have something special. Owen and Chandril alike were totally exhausted, and they both slept soundly as the Skaven peered in at the window. With the agility of a cat, Snitch climbed down from the snow-covered roof and landed silently in the Sitchin's windowsill. The window was not locked. Why would it be? Because it's freezing outside. And so Snitch casually entered. The fools, not Snitch, thought Snitch, looking at them lying there soundly asleep. It would be too easy to kill them. No, it wouldn't! No, it wouldn't! Okay, for a start, okay, they're bloody idiots. One, for not locking the window. Two, because the entire reason they won the race is so that Snitch would find them. And three, because of that reason, you lock your windows and generally, don't go to sleep at the same time. I've said they're exhausted, but I really doubt this is the same night as, they won the race. I'm thinking this is a few nights later because, it's obscure, but I'm getting the feeling this is a few nights later. Because everything, otherwise everything would happen too fast. So they're the bloody idiots. And Snitch is the biggest idiot of all, because there they are, these two who have, he wants revenge on them, but no. Too easy to kill them now, the Skaven thought. So easy to kill them, but no, even if he wanted to, he respected this hillman so much he would have to challenge him to a duel to prove himself that he was better. Get lost! He's an assassin. He would prove himself by killing him. That's what assassins do. Silently, Snitch took out some sleeping powder and sprinkled a pinch over each of them. It was mid-afternoon when Owen awoke. I can see where this is going. He had a pounding headache. It was not a bit surprised to see Chandril gone. Half conscious, he stretched his arm under the bed until he found his water bowl. Unscrewing it, he emptied the contents of it onto his forehead, soaking the bed pillows. He didn't care. Obviously not one for a lie-in then. He stopped. He hoped that the cool, fresh water would sober him up a bit. But wait. He hadn't had anything to drink that night. You sure? I'm pretty sure he had. Because he was celebrating with people. So something was very wrong. He rolled over to what should have been the bed, but instead landed with a thud on the floor. You moron. Then he saw a piece of parchment on the floor. He held it to his drowsy eyes. On it was scrawled writing which said, "If you want to see your beloved girl again, be at the falls of the abyss as soon as you can wake yourself up. Signed, Deathmaster Stitch." Owen swore all of the words that he could think of while he scrumpled the parchment up. He cursed so violently that he shocked himself. Yeah, he's swearing then. Slowly he rose to his feet. Why are you surprised that this happened? This was your entire plan, you moron. And then he's like, oh, he's actually come to get us. What? Chapter 10. Revenge is hell until you have it. The Falls of the Abyss is an odd place. In fact, it's totally bizarre. Two nameless rivers run into it and flow down a deep hole. Its depth cannot be measured, and at the bottom is a swirling whirlpool. Where it goes, nobody knows. Many say it leads to the Abyss, hence its name. This was where Snitch wanted to duel Owen, and the Barbarian was more than willing to accept. If he lost, he would not only lose his revenge, but Chandril would undoubtedly have a very slow death. He must not fail. Midnight was in no shape to ride to the falls, nor was Surefoot, so Owen had to buy a horse from a trader. His new horse was brown and white, and of average breeding and quality. You don't care about what horse he's... Owen did not intend to keep Brandy, though, but to sell him back once he had dealt with Snitch. Owen rode swiftly, armed with only the axe of Tigana, and daggers in his boots, and wearing leather armor for ease of movement rather than protection to battle Snitch. And the hook, don't forget. So he's only got this magical dagger, this magical axe, magical hook, daggers, and leather armor. That's all he's got. I suppose that's actually quite a small list compared to like what he had before, with like the bows and stuff. But he can't use bows anymore. Snitch was waiting patiently for him by the side of the hall. He was alone. Of course he was. Next to him was a bag which was tied to a lone burnt-out tree. It moved slightly. Owen guessed that Chandril was in there. Owen rode until he was 100 yards from the assassin and then dismounted. He knew that if he ran at Snitch, he would just end up being thrown into the abyss. Instead, he stood his ground, trying to draw Snitch away from the pit. Okay, so here we are, guys. This is what it's all been building up to. Yeah, you guys ready for this? Yeah? This is it. This is the duel. This is the duel. You decided to turn up then, Hillman, said Snitch. Did you think I wouldn't come? No, Snitch said. You are so stupid to think that you can win. I can. Like you did at Veer, scoffed Deathmaster. You were lucky, Hillman. No, you were. Something snatched and stitched. He hated being out-talked, especially by a mindless human. And how has he been out-talked here? I'm just wondering. Because, you decided to turn up. Did you think I wouldn't come? No, you're stupid and you think you can win. I can win. Like you did at Veer, you were lucky. No, you were. It's like, how is that out-talked? It's like, I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you. That's all that is. That is... Something snapped in Snitch. He hated being out-talked by going, nah, you were. Ooh. Steady. Especially by a mindless human and a hillman at that. The assassin slowly moved towards Owen. He drew a short sword which had a purple tinge to it. Owen knew it was poisoned. When Snitch was only 10 feet away, Owen hurled his axe at him. Oh, that old chestnut. Thinking he would get it over with swiftly. Unfortunately, the axe missed by inches as Snitch ducked out the way. Just as Snitch reached Owen, the Barbarian had time to draw his dagger and stop the downwards blow with one while stabbing with his hook. Snitch caught Owen's wrist and began to force the hook back onto him. Owen should have easily countered the Skaven, but Snitch's touch was like death. His claws dug into the tendons of Owen's arms. Blood trickled out of the wound, but Owen couldn't feel it. He was hatefully staring into Snitch's black eyes. I like that. So he can't overpower Owen, but his talons are digging into him. So that's weakening him. I quite like that. The Barbarian's boot went up and hit Snitch's leg. Snitch fell backwards and Owen had him off guard and unarmed for a second. His dagger span around and landed where Snitch's arm was, but by pure fluke, Snitch moved it just in time. Snitch rose, grabbed the huge Barbarian by his arm and threw him over his head. And in doing so, he did a backwards roll and kicked the Barbarian's stomach. I have no idea what that meant, but I'm sure it was awesome. Owen flew a full 12 feet before landing, falling near his axe. He made a grab for it, but Snitch's foot fell on his arm. Owen looked up as Snitch drew a dagger. Why? You've got the sword. He hasn't disarmed you. Just stab him with the sword. Okay. He looked up and felt hopeless. Then he remembered his hook. By all the gods, he had forgotten it, as you knew. The hook of mine went straight for Snitch's leg, but a split second later the leg wasn't there anymore. The Snaven assassin had jumped 10 feet into the air, and landed near the abyss. Owen rose to his feet. Okay, so we've got a lot of dodging and throwing and stuff going on here. He knew that he had just one shot at this. He bent down to get his axe, but instead a dart for his dagger in his left boot. He drew it and threw it faster than Snitch could see. Suddenly, Snitch had pain in his stomach. He looked down to see the dagger in him. Oh, he looked at Owen and began to fall. Oh, no, you don't, said Owen, and ran towards Snitch and grabbed his throat just before he was about to fall into the abyss. Then Snitch lost his footing, and Owen was holding him with one straight arm in midair, dangling above the whirlpool. I'll be back, Hillman. You're going to Snitch between ragged breaths. The hell you will. Oh, Owen. Yeah, the hell you will. That's definitely that's a Narnia quote. With that, Owen let Snitch go, screaming into the whirlpool of the abyss. I have avenged you, my brother, said Owen to himself, his eyes closed. Now you can sleep in peace. I don't know if I'm disappointed or what with that. Welcoming thoughts on that last duel. I mean, it was always going to be what it was, wasn't it? But I'm going to throw a dagger faster than he can see. The whole dagger to the gut thing. He's got to die somehow. I suppose that was good a reason, as any. So, okay. If you have everything, you have nothing. No aim, no future, no life. Well, I kind of see where you're going with that one, past Variax, but at the same time, you know, I'm not quite sure I believe you. It was dark when the two of them found their way to Delbridge's house on the back of Brandy. Chandril did not seem to be hurt beyond a few bruises. Obviously, Snitch planned to make her death a long one while once dealing with Owen. Now he wouldn't have the chance. Before Owen could drag the elf up the stairs, she collapsed. She was affected more by the sleeping powder than Owen was. Obviously, because he's just like ridden all the way there, fought Snitch, killed him, ridden all the way back, and he's fine. Whereas she's just laid in a slack all day, and he's still feeling it. When she awoke, the sun was just rising. She curled up into a ball beneath the soft covers on the floor. Ripple lay. Why is she on the floor? It makes her sleep on the floor? Okay. I don't know. She smiled and rubbed his head. She didn't remember a thing. How had she got down here, she wondered. Where is she? Before Owen could drag the elf up the stairs. Well, you could carry her. I'm sure you could just about carry, you know, a dainty elf up some stairs, considering everything else you do. But no, you let her sleep on the floor, do you? Is that what you do? She heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It was Owen. Are you alright? He asked. Fine, she said. Why am I down here? You don't remember? Asked Owen, sitting beside her. Remember what? Owen sighed and told her that he had killed Snitch. And I missed it, she said, sorrowfully. Well, you were there, Owen smiled. Chandra rose. I think I'll cook breakfast for Delbridge today, she said. Yes, okay, you just go along and cook breakfast like a good little woman. Meanwhile, Owen will kill the bad guy while you just get yourself captured. Alright, okay, well, that's okay, fine. A day later, they were gone. Chandril had taken Brandy for a pack horse rather than sell him. Ripper travelled with her in a small pouch in a saddle. This reminded Owen of Cert. He decided to go to Hillport to visit him. Owen and Chandril rode through the streets together, but in silence. When they reached the gates that left them in the mountains again, they said goodbye. Do you think we'll meet again? Asked Chandril. I hope so, replied Owen. The world isn't big enough to keep our kind apart for long. Chandril looked at the snow-capped mountains. I hope you find what you want, she said. And you. Farewell, Chandril. He held out his hand. Farewell, Owen. Chandril took his hand. For an instant they remained like that, then parted ways. Owen, his money pouch full, went to find old friends, make new ones, and make new enemies. But most of all, he was going to have fun. And if that meant risking his life for a king's fortune, a beautiful princess, or a few coins, it wouldn't matter. He rode, with not a single regret in his mind, to make another fortune. The end. Done. Well. So we never saw anything of that Broville character anymore. There wasn't much to that story, was there? I mean, it was just like one long line of events, which I suppose is every story. But, you know, it's like, okay, so we got to the inn, and then we had the fight with the hillmen, which I think was just filler. In fact, a lot of that story was just filler. There was only the chariot race and the duel with Snitch that actually mattered in all that. The rest of it was just pure filler. I was obviously, you know, running out of ideas, running out of perhaps motivation, I don't know. And, you know, just wanted to get to the end, maybe, possibly. So there it was. Owen the Barbarian. There was some good stuff in there. There was. I especially liked, you know, in the last book that we've just read, where he was thinking about old friends, about Sven and Cert and everything like that, and, you know, about past events. It added some sort of closure to it, and it did give reason why he suddenly felt the urge to not take all this money. Although we never found out what happened to all that money, because he had a king's ransom, didn't he? And you know, basically, and it just disappeared. But yeah, it was kind of nice how I did that. I don't even know whether I meant to, but you know, it did give some reasoning to why he suddenly just went, whoa, wait a minute, I don't want all this. Of course, you know, Chandril didn't want it either. You know, rather than like going, what the hell are you talking about, man? We got riches, You know, we live like king and queen. We're fine. This is what it's all about. Shrug. I don't know. But we've reached the end, and that's the important part, and that's the point I wanted to make at the end of this video. I recently got a message from somebody, an email, asking for some motivation in writing because they had an idea that they just couldn't get down on paper. And what I basically told them was that they have to write their Owen the Barbarian, because your first story, the writing is going to be bloody awful. Even like the first draft of a story, it's going to be terrible. It doesn't matter. Get to the end. Because that's what I did with this. If I hadn't finished this, I may not have started Iiosia, and I might not have been writing and stuff. Because if I never finished this and gave up on this, then I just might not have taken it up as a hobby. But because I got to the end of it, because I got that satisfaction of finishing it, I could put it to one side, forget about it, which I did, and start other things. But it's that finishing it that really, really helps. So this has birthed Iiosia, this story. None of this, this IRPG stuff and everything like that. I'm sure, like, without this, I would be a much less creative person now, because I'm constantly thinking about this. In my free time, my idle thoughts often turn to Iiosia. And it's all because of this story. This was my first story ever, and I just wrote it, and it's quite long for what it is. And alright, most of it's utter trash. And I had a good laugh reading it, and I hope you guys had a good laugh listening to me read it. And yeah, it was good to read. And I wouldn't say it was inspiring, but it certainly is thoughtful to return to things like this after so long. And yeah, I look at the flaws and weaknesses in it, but also there was things in it that I did like. There were things in it I did like that I thought that's actually quite good. And generally the actual writing isn't so bad. I mean, this kind of stuff is not bad. It's not brilliant. I mean, but it's certainly not illegible. Most of the time, I could figure out what was going on, and I finished it, which was the main thing. The main thing I want to get across is that, like with NaNoWriMo, you're writing crap, but if you get to the end, you've got that basis to work on. Then you've finished it, so then you've got the basis to continue with something else or to go back to it. I won't be going back to this. I'm going to leave it for posterity. This is my first story, and it was really nice to join it again. It really was to visit it, and I hope you guys enjoyed my visiting it too. But yeah, it's done, and I moved on to hopefully bigger and better things. But that's it. You just got to get to the end, and this was where it all began. So it was good to see it. All right then. Before I repeat myself again, I'm going to go. Thank you very much for watching. Again, I do appreciate your thoughts and comments and your company in this, and I shall hopefully see you another time for another video. Until then, this is goodbye to Owen the Barbarian, and see you soon. Toodaloo.